Hello USKMA affiliates, our very first ever video conference. Okay, I'm not the best looking dude in the world, so if you just want to do your work and listen to this, that's okay. This takes place of our conference call and the newsletter, putting all this together, and then you can listen to it at your leisure rather than having to be there a certain day. And I don't know, eventually maybe I'll have PowerPoints and that kind of stuff. Got a whiteboard today. Things that are coming up, let's start with that. Basically on these conference or these teleconferences, I want to give you something for class, something for marketing, of course the announcements and all that stuff. We got lots of level 1 and 2 trainings coming up. If you've got people that need to get through level 1 or level 2 to instruct for you, hit me up and send them. We've got one actually in Anchorage, Alaska. I doubt you'll send anyone there, but we've got some other ones coming up. April 7th and 8th, absolutely plan on you and your whole staff, if you can get them there, coming down to Florida to our affiliate training weekend. Lots of cool seminars, some special instructors, things not only for classes and how to get better at certain things, like fight classes and that sort of stuff. We'll have a cardio MMA class to get you certified in that, the way we do our cardio MMA. We'll have marketing seminars. It'll be cool. And the best thing is you and your staff can come for free. I'll have more details on this shortly. I'll have some discounted hotels and that kind of thing. The night before that starts, the Friday evening, April the 6th, we're going to have our first ever USKMA affiliate black belt test. So if you want to see 10 or 12 guys get put through, guys and ladies get put through heck, come early and watch that test. There's nothing like it. I've never seen anything like it. Tentatively, and I will let you know for sure shortly, May 4th and 5th, also down in Florida, we're going to have a training weekend. You're more than welcome to come, but it's going to be more for your students. Send your students to this training weekend for probably a lot of weapons disarms and a lot of cool training, just to come and get a bunch of USKMA affiliate school members together. But again, we'll have some more details on that shortly. The thing we want to talk about today for the class is law enforcement and military in your class. At Ohio Krav Maga and Fitness, we've truly had dozens and dozens and dozens of local police, local sheriff, federal marshals, we've had ATF agents, we've had FBI agents. People really, it draws them to our gyms. We've had a lot of soldiers that are getting ready to be deployed coming and taking our classes. You want this. It makes you look good. It really affirms what we're teaching. Those people aren't coming to BS because they'll use this stuff. Their lives will be on the line. It is totally cool that they pack our gyms because they see the value of what we're teaching. It is, to me, it's the best stuff a law enforcement agent could possibly want to take, being easy to learn and effective and all that good stuff. There are some different dynamics. We're all about keeping people safe, teaching people how to be safe. We need to teach law enforcement how to be safe on their job, and it's a different dynamic. There's some things that we can do that they can't, and vice versa. So we absolutely want to make sure that when the law officers are in our classes, that we're not just teaching them like everybody else. There's some things you got to do a little bit different, and we're going to talk about that. First off, make sure they tell you if they're law enforcement. I think right on our payment sheet it says 10% off for military, firefighters, and law enforcement. And generally they don't get paid that much. They'll tell you they want that 10% discount. So we got to know who the cops are. I don't know. You can tell a cop, I guess, just by the way they look and act. I don't know. They're just a different dynamic. They're cool people. I love having them in class. Things that we're going to do, and I've written some of them down if you can see any of them. In classes, stances. Our neutral stance in class is here. Everybody does this. Law enforcement neutral stance is here. It's their interview stance, their shooting stance, their fighting stance, their ready stance. When they're on duty, even when they're not on duty, I hope it's grained into their head that they stand with their sidearm back and their hands are kind of up. All of us should probably stand around that way, but we don't. Civilians, we just stand however we stand. Cops, they should have that ingrained in them. That's how they stand whenever they're talking to somebody. Even when they're talking to their wife at home and they're standing, they should be in this stance. It should be ingrained in them. So let that be their neutral stance. It's basically everybody else's ready stance. And I always say, everybody neutral stance. Remember, your neutral stance is our ready stance. They've got to be ready for things. Equipment. Tweak some things. You got to remember, they've got that belt on with all that crap on it. Like the way we move on the ground, for instance, that might not be practical with all that stuff they have on their belt. I also get into their heads that, this isn't just for when you're on duty. You only work 40 hours a week. That's a lot of hours that you're not on duty. We've got to be able to do this stuff as well when we're at the store with our kids or whatever, in case the crap hits the fan. Punching. A lot of cops won't punch, and it's okay in class if they want to use palms, but I get into their heads, punching's okay. You have permission to punch. Now, it's an odd dynamic. I've been to law enforcement agencies where they tell you if you're punching the bad guy, you're using deadly force. But if the bad guy's punching you, that's not use of deadly force. It's just stuff written by politicians. Let them know, even if it's against their policy, they can punch. When we're doing a weapons disarm, it's going to knock somebody out with a punch way before a palm. So as we're blocking that knife, punch somebody in the throat. I tell them, if you're justified in that situation to draw your sidearm and shoot that dude, you're certainly justified to punch them. You're not going to get in trouble for that. Worry about your life and not about what the politicians are crying around about. So again, if they want to protect their wrists and palm in class, that's fine. But let them know, sometimes I want to see punching. Wrap your darn wrists, because I want you to know how to punch. Our weapons disarms are over if we knock somebody out. And you're not knocking anybody out with a palm. Punching. So absolutely get that into their heads. Endings. Our civilians, how do we end like a choke defense? We end by beating somebody into the ground until they're unconscious. Cops can't do that. Civilians, we end by, as soon as we have hurt them enough, we escape. Cops can't do that. Let them go ahead and work on their endings, their takedowns, their cuffing. That's okay. Now, whoever they're partnered with, tell them, you don't do that. Don't be dumb. Do what we would do as civilians. But cops, they can't end things the way we do. Now, again, they can certainly practice those, because sometimes they'll be off duty. If things ever happen when they're off duty, we want them to be safe. But again, the cuffings, the takedowns, they can't disengage. They can't beat the living tar out of somebody like we do. And sometimes, again, let them go ahead and act like they're accessing the other stuff off of their belts, with the thought that not every time, because you may not have your belt the one time you're attacked off duty. Falls, when we fall backwards, we break. We got to have them ready they've got their handgun in their hands. So basically, when they fall, they squat down, and instead of breaking with their arms, they kind of break with their elbows and keep their hands up in front of them. Just a good idea. Generally, we're going to be unarmed, I guess, if we get knocked to the ground. But, we can also practice that as well, especially the instructors. I hope that you've practiced what you're going to teach the law enforcement. But they break with their elbows, keeping their hands up in front of them. Because, again, in the skirmish, they're drawing their weapon, they could easily fall down, and they can't be used to coming out of them, dropping whatever's in their hands and smacking. We wouldn't want that. Accessing their weapon. We do this a lot with law enforcement seminars. They'll be doing one of our choke defense, and they'll decide when they can draw that weapon. Not even just their handgun, it could be their knife or whatever. We've had them in karate chokes deciding what they're going to do with that knife. Generally, you'll see them wanting to do this, and they're hacking their own head. What we've learned is just go down here and slice right at the bottom of that quadricep. That generally drops anybody that you do that to. And that's a much safer, easier move. Just drop it here to here instead of trying to frickin' hack around. Simple things like that, we want them to work on. The thing is, especially when we're doing, for instance, knife, they want that weapon. And as they're accessing that weapon, they're getting stabbed 5 and 6 and 7 times. We don't want that. We want them to do the defense, block, punch, and when is it safe for me to draw my weapon, rather than always going for that, which most cops are trained pretty much just go right for that. And again, there's situations where that's not what you want to do. Even handgun defense, there's a handgun on me. I need to take this away and now access my own. It just makes sense that he would probably pull the trigger if he saw me reaching for my weapon. So let them practice that kind of stuff. And I'm talking about in regular classes. Anytime you're showing people to do something, you can walk over to the cops and say, hey, if you guys do it this way. Verbalize. Cops generally are taught, and it's probably a good idea, as they're whacking on somebody, to be saying things like, stop resisting, stop resisting. Just bystanders. He was beating the guy up, but hey, he was telling him to stop resisting. This is just smart things that they can do and that they're taught to do. They can certainly practice that in class as they're wailing away on their partner. Let them verbalize things like that. Again, these are the civilians. You don't want them listening to this and copying it. And then when I see that, I go to the civilian and I say, hey, they're cops. That's why they're doing it that way. You don't need to worry about that. They got too many rules over there. Make them sound like they're not doing anything better. They're just doing things for their job. But yeah, they should certainly be doing that kind of stuff in your classes. Drills, we run them through drills, and they're there to get into shape and to learn all that stuff. But I always, I would hope they know this, but law enforcement doesn't train that much defensive tactics, that much empty hand. I know of departments where it's only mandated they do it 2 hours a year, 2 hours a year. So we absolutely got to give these little things to them. During the drills, we tell them, you realize This drill is about fighting for a solid minute. I hope you know that in 10 seconds, if what you're doing isn't working, you up the force. You know, you access something from your belt or whatever. They still got to run our drills. We just want them to be thinking about those things. Disarms, absolutely. I want them to come to, when we do the weapons disarm seminars, the first Friday of every month. I absolutely want them in there to learn that stuff. But I'll also take cops aside the 10 minutes in between classes and show them for 5 minutes, hey, work on this. Then the next time you see them, of course they didn't perfect it in that 5 minutes, but hopefully they worked on it. And you just keep working handgun disarms, our thoughts on bladed weapons, stick defenses. All krav organizations have the problem that stuff comes too late in the curriculum, but you know, we got to walk before we can run. But to get to our weapons disarms and that kind of stuff, I don't want them to wait till they're level 3 and 4. They need to know that stuff. My thought always is, if I teach citizens this stuff, it may be for the one time in their life that they need it. When I'm teaching cops this stuff, they'll probably use it this month. That's why I want them to be as good as they can be, as safe as they can be, as sharp as they can be. I know I was at a law enforcement seminar, and we were teaching bad guys mounted on you with a gun in your face, you're laying on the ground. And one of the officers said, hell yeah, I've been through this just a month ago. I'm like, wow, it makes what you're teaching, it makes you want to teach the most scientific, battle-tested, best stuff that you can show anybody, because these guys are going to use this stuff. So again, just absolutely make sure you're teaching cops different. Okay? They may well be an instructor for you and need to learn it for the civilian way and all that kind of stuff. They'll go teach other civilians, they'll teach their family, that's cool. I want them to know the krav the way we teach it, but I want them to work on the stuff that's going to save their butt. So you got any other pointers or any questions about that, for sure, email me, call me, and we appreciate it.